Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for coming out today in such great numbers, and for those online as well, welcome to the first in our masterclass series for the launch of the InsurTech and FinTech group. I'm Jordan Levy. I'm going to be emceeing today. I am the head of innovation for a company called Endava, who's a London headquartered company, and I am living up here in Letterkenny for the last 16 years. This is a Sligo accent, not a Donegal accent. I'm still working on that. But I remotely work for a London-based company from here. So thank you again for the opportunity. I'm a graduate of both Sligo and Letterkenny, so now getting used to a graduate of ATU, so it's fantastic to have the opportunity today. And thanks again. We have a fairly packed agenda, so we're going to have to knock through it, but there's a lot of really interesting and great content coming up. So let me kick off first with welcoming Gary Martin, who's the Director of Economic Development at the Donegal County Council, to say a few words. So let me hand over to Gary.
Thanks, Joe, and good morning, everybody. I nearly won the prize as the only person wearing a tie here today. But there's a three-way tie between, I think, Mr. Rossiter and Mr. Boner at the back. So I'll let you guys decide on who has got the nicest tie, and we can pick up the prize at lunchtime. This is what happens when you come out to talk to the tech sector, you know. Anyway, you talk about being overdressed. Listen, thanks very much for the invitation, first and foremost. And as Joe says, my name's Gary Martin. I'm Director for Economic Development in Donegal County Council. And as you'll see, probably the question is why are we setting, I suppose, the tone at the outset in the context of a conversation from local government. My colleague Stephen Gillespie from Derry City and Strabane District Council is here as well today. And I suppose it's a reflection on what we try to do in the context of the wider Northwest. And so I suppose particularly for some of those of you who are not from the region, maybe to just put in context why we think our region is particularly unique and special. At the outset, I want to thank Michael and John Andy and Paul and indeed everybody here at ATU for inviting us to participate in this. There is a great sense of collaboration, and we do a lot of things together. We have the odd row. We have the odd disagreement, but we always try and point things towards the right direction. And the direction always is what do we need to do collectively and collaboratively to make this part of the world better for everybody in it, whether it be through education, whether it be through putting in place infrastructure, or whether it be in supporting, I suppose, the wider development of our ecosystem for people to live in and to come and visit. So anyway, we think we're a unique geographic location. We straddle two jurisdictions. And now, post-Brexit, we straddle two differentiated trading areas. Brexit, as we found out recently in the completion of our own Grant Thornton study, is not a destination in and of itself. It's a journey that we're all on, and I suppose we need to try and ensure we navigate that as well as we can. And that's part of the reason why we work collectively. The natural geographic hinterland that we sit in encompasses, I suppose, economic activity, social activity, cultural activity. And I suppose pre-partition, and this is not a political statement, but pre-partition, the areas of Donegal, Derry and Tyrone would have had huge interrelationships. And that's why you'd see an awful lot of common familial names between those three counties. Because back in the day, people would have, I suppose, moved back and forth across the border without a second thought. And to be fair, even during the worst times of the Troubles, that has still continued. And I suppose what we have to try to do as local authorities, we have to try to make that, I suppose, as seamless as we possibly can. Letterkenny is a designated regional centre for development, and I suppose mirrored, with the investment in Derry City, we see those two areas as being the dual hubs around which economic activity in the wider Northwest region will develop. And again, that's one of the reasons why we want to work very closely and collectively together as well. It's acknowledged on the island of Ireland as being a unique location by both governments, and that's why there's a special focus through the Northwest Strategic Growth Partnership and supported by both governments in Belfast and in Dublin for specific and special initiatives that we have here. And it is a recognition of the fact that on this island of ours, we have, I suppose, a particular commonality across those areas that we need to work really hard at to get the best out of and to maximise the opportunities for our respective communities. In that context, both councils and the development partners within the entire region, we offer, I suppose, the value proposition. When we're selling the region, we work collectively. So when we're on our international trade missions, we don't sell Donegal alone, we don't sell Derry alone, we sell the Northwest region, and we allow those businesses who are looking to perhaps develop in this part of the world an opportunity to look at either a UK base or an EU base here in Donegal, and to give them an opportunity to have either either one world or indeed, as is happening more recently, the best of both worlds. And we look forward to working with businesses, I suppose, in that context. This is particularly relevant in a post-COVID and post-Brexit world where the dynamics of location decision making, I suppose, face new challenges. But against every challenge, there's an opportunity, and with the way we try to reflect that is that, look, these are things that we have to work together to surmount, and we can do that, and there are huge opportunities, we think, in the respective councils with our development partners for investing in this new region in a post-COVID and a post-Brexit world. And that social experiment that we all had to go through post-COVID, as an example, there's people I'm seeing here today that I only saw as avatars over the last 2 years. It's great to see that you've got arms and legs and all the rest of it. Great to see people in the flesh. But that experiment has taught us that in a rural part of Europe and a rural part of Ireland, indeed, and even in rural parts of Donegal, some of you are based, there are opportunities to work in the same way as you would from a big glass edifice along a city quay somewhere, whether it be on this island or further afield. So those opportunities are really, really strong for us here. And the businesses currently located here know that already. Some of you are here today, and balanced with the quality of life and the standard of supports that you have, it's a really, really good place to do business and to live. And I suppose this is reflected in the cross-border cluster of FinTech and InsurTech oriented businesses, which, you know, the primary focal point, the primary conversation today is around, and a number of you are actually here today. And the reason for that is we draw from a large population, 350,000. We punch much higher than what our weight might seem to be. We have multiple feeder universities here, the ATU, Ulster University, and indeed other universities on the island of Ireland that ATU and UU collaborate with. And that's all supported by the agility of the further education and training institutions such as the Donegal Education Training Board, the Northwest Regional College, supported by the development agencies. Michelle Connaugh's here from IDA today, Enterprise Ireland, Udris na Gaeltachta that we have, and the Gaeltacht areas in Donegal, our own local enterprise offices, our own economic development division led by Anne-Marie Conlon, who's here today, Invest Northern Ireland and Northern Ireland, and obviously as well, and counterparted by our colleagues in Derry City and Strabane District Council. And all of those there are there to offer a support for businesses looking to develop in the wider Northwest region. We have our own ambitions in Donegal. Some of you will be aware we have a large, as part of the regeneration plans here in Letterkenny, we have a large investment plan for the centre of the town, an innovation centre revolving around 2 large-scale buildings, and we're working hard to realise that over the next number of years to assist businesses for both start-up, for location, by location, relocation, or for soft landings. We can't do any of that unless we have a very strong partnership and collaboration. And that's a great thing. When you've been around as long as I have, over a period of years, you either fall out with people, as we say in Donegal, or you get on with them. And what we've managed to do is we have a very strong ethos of trying to find that sweet spot where we all work collectively and collaboratively together to see how we can achieve the objectives that we have. And for the wider Northwest region, our objectives is to make sure that this place has got the best opportunity for people that are living here, for the children that are coming behind us, and in my case, grandchildren coming behind us, and for everyone who wants to come to visit here. And we work really, really hard to make sure that we do that, but we can't do that without the collaboration of all of our different partners and stakeholders. And I just want to acknowledge that here today to reflect that continually evolving stakeholder, particularly amongst, we'll call it the statutory sector, but more so as we continue to evolve and develop with private sector initiatives trying to work and support clusters in different sectors and see what they actually need. So as local government, we stand here to support you. We're here to assist you. Never be afraid to ask the question. Never be afraid to criticise. We're well used to that. But never be afraid as well to offer suggestions as to how we can work collaboratively together so that we can both realise our joint ambitions. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Gary. I just welcome to the stage Stephen Gillespie, who is the Director of Business at Derry City and Strabane District Council. So, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for ATU for the invitation to speak this morning. As you see, I did get the memo that you didn't have to have a tie, but anyway, Gary obviously didn't read to the bottom of the email. And so I just want to echo everything that Gary has said. I mean, in terms of our city region, we work extremely closely together, and the FinTech sector is vital to the success of the region going forward. So how we go out and sell ourselves in America is as a joint city region as Ireland's Northwest. What we have in the post-Brexit world is the opportunity to work in 2 jurisdictions. That gives us a unique advantage. It has its issues, but we can work through that. As local councils, we are committed to how we work with the sector to grow it. We see it as a real opportunity in terms of skills going forward. The new world where we can be based anywhere suddenly isn't such a disadvantage anymore to be disconnected and to be in the northwest in the corner of the island. So we see that as that real opportunity. We're selling that on a regular basis, but we can't do that in isolation. We need to work with the sector. We need to respond to the needs of the sector. ATU, UU and the Northwest Regional College have that collaboration in terms of skills. As local councils, we need to recognise what we need to do to help you, be it physically in terms of buildings, be it policy, be it planning, whatever those issues are, and we are here to help. And how we do that is, as Gary says, is partnership. That's how we work. We work together with government, we work together with yourselves, we work together with policymakers. We don't see the border, the different jurisdictions as an issue. What we see that as our advantage and how we can lever that and how we can grow. And I think over the next few years, there's really exciting times in the whole FinTech, InsurTech and RegTech areas and how we can grow those sectors and develop that as their real unique advantage. I know when I go to the City of London, I know when we're in Boston, I know when those resonate with those larger centres. They're struggling to get skills, they're struggling to get people, and we can offer those solutions and we can offer those advantages to them and access to all markets. So how we work together going forward is in that partnership and in that collaboration mode. So from us as Derry City and Strabane District Council, it was really important that we were here today to reinforce that collaboration, to reinforce that message and say this is us working together as for the entire Northwest and for the benefit of everybody. So thank you as well to Michael for rejigging the running order a wee bit to let me speak up front, because I think that was really important, because unfortunately I can't stay to the end. I need to get back for something. But I hope you have a really good day today. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the speakers and enjoy the rest of the day. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Gary, and also thanks very much, Stephen. So I think it's really clear to see that we've got a lot of interest and working together as a region. The whole dynamic here is around a cluster from an InsurTech and FinTech perspective. The good news is we're not doing this from scratch here. We also have a model that we can mimic. So our counterparts in other parts of the country, like Carlow IT, or sorry, I don't know what Carlow IT, it's obviously in a ETU. SETU have also done this cluster in the past. So what we're going to now is have an opportunity to hear about how that was built, the success of that, and certainly something that we can look to model and partner up with, because the idea of the cluster is obviously the cluster is more powerful the more that's in it. So I'm going to turn over now to Aidan Mahan. I believe Aidan's joined us virtually, and he is the manager of the InsurTech Network Centre, and also I'm going to have Damien Rossiter as well, who's the Centre for Insurance Risk and Data Analytics manager as well, who are going to provide a little bit more context in what they've built in the past and what we're looking to partner on. Okay, so I turn it over to Aidan.
Thanks, Joe. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Aidan. Yeah.
Perfect. Got to see the presentation there on screen. 1 second. Computer. Yeah, perfect. So I'm clear now. Yeah, thanks, Joe. I manage the InsurTech Network Centre here at SETU, and it's great to collaborate this exciting event, and thanks for having us up at it. We were established in 2018, and the purpose of the InsurTech Network Centre is a joint initiative between SETU Carlow, formerly IT Carlow, and Enterprise Ireland. And the to be solved and enable insurers, brokers, and MGAs to innovate and really then
expand through the access and the research and development resources of SE2 Carlo via our Design Plus technology gateway. To start then is something particularly we're excited about here is by building partnerships, mentoring, launching and exploring funding options then for InsurTech startups using the InsurTech Accelerator, and then engaging with industry via the educational resources of SE2 Carlo and to develop employees and grow your business, and particularly more recently through the CERDAS offering, the joint initiative here between ourselves and our partners in ATU Donegal. And Damien will speak later to that. But also then we're hoping to co-locate all this then in a facility on campus that's in development at the moment, and really develop the centre of excellence around that, where we can co-locate all these activities and have all these activities happening side by side. Just by way of a brief background, in terms of building this ecosystem, we're not much further down the road. But again, since 2018, my own background is I worked as a commercial insurance broker for over 10 years. The centre itself is supported by a strong and active representative steering group with some industry support bodies, but then mainly insurers and MGAs on that group. We also then, sorry, the we've really focused on leveraging the resources then of SE2 Carlo support the wider industry. We delivered the first pre-accelerator in Q4 2021 in partnership with Dogpatch and InsurTech Ireland. That was a particularly exciting event. And then in Q4 2020, we secured funding for the Centre for Insurance Risk and Data Analytics Studies, which was launched in 2021. We developed a proposal there with our partners at ATU Donegal, and we secured approximately 1.8 million in funding for really upskilling across a range of areas, and Damien will speak to more of this later. But this is a really exciting initiative, and again, thanks to the guys, John Andy Bonner particularly, and Michael Margie for collaborating with us on this. But it's an initiative that's really taken legs now, and we're keen to see how it develops into the future. And Damien then, who will speak later, joined us as the program manager then for CERDAS, and he brings with him a wealth of financial services and tech experience, which I think will add, which will add greatly to the program. Just the slides here, 1 second now. And then in terms of just very briefly what we do with the accelerator, we have a vibrant and diverse range of startups in our accelerator. They work across a broad range of industries, be it offerings from FinTech, RegTech, MedTech or AgTech. But if they have an insurance application, we can often consider them then InsurTech startups, everything from drones to wearables to AI and usage-based insurance. You'll see later on hear from, and then OCR and optical character recognition and a range of other offerings that they work. The types of challenges and solutions they're working on, they're working at industries where there's low or no digitization. Then we can maybe assist them with using design thinking and looking at improving their user experience. And some of the startups can help with that as well. They're maybe suffering low retention of customers. Again, how can they employ data analytics here maybe, or RPA to improve that process? They're looking at then eliminating low value repetitive administrative tasks through the use of maybe AI or bots, and like increasing commoditization and disintermediation in the market. Again, how can they deal with that? Because these are all challenges that have faced other sectors like banking and stuff like that, and they're very much on the radar for insurance as well. And there's other RegTech plays and stuff like that we would deal with, and we're working with very closely. In terms of the wider ecosystem, who are we dealing with? We're dealing with over 60 plus, I suppose, InsurTech specific startups, I'd call them, right from idea stage to well-developed startups. Some names you might be familiar with, the likes of Blink and Arvind, who'll speak later from Insurely, right through then to newer startups, the likes of Gatepost and Cyberus there that we've engaged with in recent years. And then in terms of the wider insurance ecosystem, we have over 80 connections there from insurance companies. We also have good relationships with many of the representative bodies, but the likes of AXA, Unum, Zurich and all that would be quite strong partners of ours, along with the broker and the MGA sector, in fairness as well, to be very good supporters. And then in terms of the adjacent industries, I call them the likes of the Central Bank, the Society of Actuaries, our regional cluster there in the Southeast, the skills partnership in the Southeast, and other bodies like Brokers Ireland and Ireland for Finance we've linked in very closely with, and they've been very strong supporters and open to our offering as well. Just in terms of broadly speaking then, our research and innovation supports, I'm not going to dwell too long on these, but basically we have mainly two streams here. We can do collaborative applied and industry focused design or research via our Design Plus gateway, again, which is Enterprise Ireland funded, and we can help navigate that process for EI supports. But also there's the exciting opportunity there to commission sort of graduate and postgraduate research there, be it thesis for the MSc in data science program. And really there you're looking for problem statements and access to data. and then students can work away. And it's a great then opportunity for the companies to see these students and get in front of them, but also then for the students to see the opportunity that lies in these industries. And it's something we've had good success with in the past, and we're keen to replicate going forward. I won't dwell too long on the innovation vouchers there, but we have access to those. We've found quite a good uptake, especially in the design and data disciplines. There amongst companies, especially in the broker and MGA sectors, because it's a pretty easy win for them to engage, and Enterprise Ireland have been very good at supporting those in fairness. And then the types of projects we've done on the research and innovation front will be design thinking, strategy development, like dealing with change management, particularly in the light of COVID, process mapping, organizational mapping, looking at the customer journey and the user experience or the user interface. We've done some improvements there for brokers and MGAs with websites and apps. Facilitated focus groups then for product propositions and to see what customers really value. It's a useful process. And then the data science front again, linking in with the MSc and data science program and the lecturers there. We've done some detailed data projects around claims dashboards, propensity modeling, and stuff like that. That's very valuable to the industry. And again, we look to do more of that. And then before I hand over to Damien, I just on the CERDAS offering, he'll speak at length on that. Uh, Although we can have often like broad networks and interest from many quarters, our offering here, what we're trying to do, would not be where it is without real collaboration. And what do I mean by that? Like, that's down to our key partners. You can whittle it down fairly quickly, but particularly John Andy Bonner, Michael Margie here in ATU Donegal, the likes of Arvind Ravi of Ensurely, and Ben Deans then from AXA, who've been strong supporters of INC from the outset. And and indeed the CERDAS application, they're really key to what we do, and they're your linchpins of success. And we really would like to thank them for their time, because and I'd say to anybody here today is, take the phone call or have the phone call with the guys, reach out, and you never know where it could end up. And that's particularly even with the CERDAS project, we saw that John Andy and Michael were very keen there to engage with us, and that's how where we ended up where we are. And particularly, I'm very excited for the future of FinTech and InsurTech in Ireland, um, and the CERDAS project indeed. But really, I think not just nationally but regionally, these could deliver very strongly for both our regions, and something that I'd be very keen to collaborate into the future. I'll hand you over to Damien now, who'll pick up on the CERDAS offering.
Perfect. Thanks, Aidan. Really impressive stuff. And you've heard reference to Aravind and Ben as well, who will be actually on the panel as well. So just wanted to tie all that up. So I'm just going to hand over the mic and just slide this on for this Damien Rossiter. And Damien's going to take us through a few more slides. And we've already started the collaboration between Donegal and Carlo. He had some Kinnigo with me last night, so we're ready doing that. We're ready indoctrinating him into the best craft beer in the country. Off you go.
Thanks very much, Joe. Everyone hear me okay? Okay, so I didn't get the memo as well on the tie, so I'm one of the three. My name's Damien Roster. I'm the Program and Development Manager for CERDAS. Very long acronym, get ready for it. Centre for Insurance Risk Data Analytics Studies, and as Aidan alluded to there, it was created by SETU, Carlow Lifelong Learning Department, and the InsurTech Network Centre that Aidan heads up, and our higher education partner here in ATU, Letterkenny, who we're delighted to partner with, and some great work with John Andy Bonner and Michael Margie. Just from our perspective, for outward facing, because of all the acronyms and all the rest of it, we basically call ourselves Insurance at SETU Carlow. So whether you want to talk about education, get in touch with myself and CERDAS. Where you want to talk about research and innovation, talk to Aidan. It just kind of shortens the message for people on the outside looking in. Briefly, a bit about us. We're fully funded by the HEA, created under the HCI Pillar 3 initiative, Innovation and Agility, and that was in response to skills deficiencies identified in the Future Jobs 2019 Ireland report. Basically, what we do is we provide education solutions for upskilling and reskilling of the insurance and financial services sectors. A bit more about it. We find that in our engagement with industry, I think the days of signing up for 3 and 4 years of courses are largely gone to a large extent. So what we provide is kind of multiple clear alternate progression paths and routes with multiple entry and exit points into major awards. So you can do a 12-week program on data analytics, and that might be enough to fulfill your need, either in a personal development perspective or in an organization or departmental level, and then you can move on and walk away with the level 10 or level 8 10 credit certificate. Flexible agile delivery. So we were delighted to partner with AXA earlier on in last September, and we provided the courses at a time that suited them best. So we can deliver during the day, deliver during the evening time as well. What we offer is everything from masterclass up to 5 and 10 credit modules and certificates, and multiple combinations of those will get you to the major award at level 8 or 9. and they're also free or heavily subsidised as well. Not sure if I have a clicker to move it on. Yeah. So very quickly, just a quick favour of what we offer. So as Aidan alluded to there, we've 4 kind of delivery pillars there. We've data analytics, business thinking, design thinking, and we pivoted to include equality, diversity and inclusion because we saw an awful lot of demand in there. So we have a higher diploma in EDI there, as you can see, broken down into multiple certificates as well. The diploma in business and innovative data generation, analytics and management, quite a mouthful. Again, that's available in certificates as well. So we have 22 modules on that. Any combination of 6 will get you the major award. We've Master of Business and Exec Leadership, and we've Postgraduate Diploma, Exec Leadership Engagement. And a piece that we also found from our engagement with industry is that we found that coaching is an area that they're increasingly looking towards to develop their skill sets in, so we've incorporated that as well. The final 2 awards there, they're not available on a multiple certificate type level. Sorry, if you could click it on. Very quickly, and this kind of gives you an idea of how we structure the programs. We like our pillars down in SETU, Carlow. So this was kind of informed from our engagement with industry, where we found that they needed upskilling and reskilling across the wide data journey. And from my perspective, I worked in financial services, so I've seen siloed thinking and some of the issues that are in insurance and financial services still today, and I've worked also in tech, high-tech startups, so I felt that we needed to look at how to understand the data is generated and understand the analysis of it, and then that usually drives more insights towards the data and people management pillar there at the end, where the insights developed in the middle pillar there usually drive change in business towards upgrade of systems and basically a requirement for more and more data. Again, back to the pillars, we like these. So in the EDI, we see the fundamental building block there as being understanding EDI. We have 2 modules there, again, similar to the last slide there. Each module that you see there is available on a standalone certificate level, so you can jump in and jump out as the needs be. As we've seen there in the last pillar, it's kind of a progression at the start of the pillar down through. The more advanced courses are at the bottom end of the pillar, and the introductory ones are at the top end of the pillar. Thanks, John. So we very much champion a co-creative approach here. So we learn from industry as much as hopefully they learn from us. And as well, it works very well with working very closely with Aidan as well in the InsurTech Network Centre, because with his contacts with some of the high-tech startups, they are of great interest to our target audience, being the insurance and financial services sector. And they help inform us as well in our program development, not just for what the current needs are for the sector, but where the industry is going next, because these are the guys driving it. So this is the Master of Business and Exec Leadership. Again, you can see we love our pillars. We have a coaching pillar, transformation pillar, influence pillar, and engagement pillar. And again, that's just built around whether maybe you just want to build your coaching, work on your coaching skills, you engage with the coaching pillar, or the influence pillar, then you engage with the influence pillar. So there's a breakdown of the modules within that. Again, this was informed with extensive engagement with industry, helped us drive the development of some of these programs. So we have the influence, engage, coach, and transform pillar there, as you see, and a number of modules at level 9 there, available all as a standalone certificate as well, just for people to be able to jump in and out of as suits them. On the learner input there, I suppose we're continuously trying to build that kind of feedback loop. So again, the masterclass is kind of a taster of what we have, or the major programs that we have. We put it out there, see what the level of engagement is, and it often engenders some feedback to us towards what they'd like to see more of, whether they'd like to see more of that or like to see more of another topic. So we very much see the learners as co-designers. We'd have weekly industry engagements. It's supplemented then, we talk, as we said, then from InsurTech and FinTech experts are always great to talk to, because, as I said, they're kind of driving the industry forward into it, where it's going next. So it's good to be future-proof as well, some of the insurance and financial services firms that we're engaging with. And then very much the people who take the courses either by masterclass or certificate or the major programs, we like to hear from them. And as we said there, the AXA Learning Academy provided us with some great feedback, and we're hoping to engage again in a further round in September this year. And the masterclass attendee feedback is of extreme use to us. It's engaging, getting our name out there, getting some feedback as regards what they'd like to see more of and what they'd like to see less of. So some sample collaborations there. So this kind of brings together what I was talking about there. We are at the second last class of a Demystifying Data Masterclass series with Dr. Mick Cooney of Describe Data, a startup in the insurance space helping deliver insights to the insurance industry. He's a quantitative financial analyst, and that masterclass has been very well received. Again, a lot of the material is derived from what you would have seen there, our higher diploma in data, so it's not just a case of we offer something that we can't deliver on if there's more interest in it. We have an EDI masterclass series, the last of which is running today with Inclusio CEO and founder Sandra Healy. That's been very well received, and we'll be rerunning both of those masterclasses now in September in the next semester. We also engage, I suppose, as well with some CPD hours. Typically, we find they're best received towards the end of the year when everyone's scrambling for their hours. But we ran ones on some upcoming legislation in insurance like SICA, which was well received. So we'll be rolling those out as well later on. The upcoming certificates there in data science, EDI, organisation and change management, and a lot more, as you would have seen in the previous slides. Today's engagement here as well was another great collaboration for us to get involved with, and I suppose we kind of work hand in glove with myself and Aidan, because it's very important, as I said, that we build that joined up thinking, that we're not working in silos. Aidan is Enterprise Ireland funded, I'm HEA funded, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't work together very closely, which we do. And we'll also have a stand at the Brokers Ireland Meet the Market event in the RDS later on this year. So that brings us to the end of our presentation, but I'd just like to reiterate again what Aidan said. The collaboration for us is extremely important in helping ensure that we're delivering value added for our customers, being the insurance and financial services industry. And I look forward to chatting to some of you later on. Thanks very much.
Perfect, Damien. Thank you again. And same thanks to Aidan as well for joining us virtually. Really impressive stuff there, and certainly something that we can look to learn from here as we build out the cluster here in Letterkenny. I've got two people I'm just going to bring up to the stage, and then we'll move things along. So first things first, if I can just invite Michelle Conahan up to the stage, please. Michelle is the Northwest Regional Manager from IDA Ireland. I believe she is a Donegal lady living in Sligo. I'm a Sligo man living in Donegal, so we're on a student exchange program. So let's see how this is going.
Thanks, Joe. We've spent a few times trying to get together, and it's taken an event to get us together in Donegal, but delighted to be here. My name is Michelle Conahan. I'm the Regional Manager for IDA Ireland for the Northwest region, and that's Donegal, Sligo and Leitrim in our Northwest region. But the Northwest City region, that 350,000 talent population, is part of the proposition for Donegal, and very important to us. So initiatives like the one we're here today to be part of the launch is really part of the ambition that I believe we are now about to really capitalise on. And I suppose what I want to do today is just to give you a sense of Ireland Inc. in terms of financial services, and also the regional aspect of that. But also some areas that we're working on that align with this. And I suppose with our clients, we've got 51 clients in the region, employing about 7,500 people. Financial services and technology are a big part of that. The key priorities for clients at the moment are around talent development, and this absolutely fits with that. Talent development, innovation, again, another tick here, and sustainability. And I think those are kind of the key topics on everybody's mind at the moment. IDA Ireland, for anyone who isn't aware, we're the government agency responsible for attracting and developing foreign direct investment into Ireland. We're 100% funded by the Irish government and have a budget of 200 million. We target foreign-owned companies who look to international expansion, and we work to attract them to Ireland. So in parallel, we work with existing foreign-owned companies. So the way I kind of describe it is, if you think of the iceberg analogy, the jobs announcements are the top of the iceberg, and below that there's a huge body of work going on with existing clients to help them innovate, transform, and develop their talent pools, to think about what's next, not what's next in the next year or two, but how can you future-proof for 5 years ahead. But none of that would be possible without our stakeholders in the region, in the Northwest and the Northwest City region. We are a team here, the County Council, Gary and Anne-Marie and the team, John Andy, Michael and the team. I have to say, I've worked in London for 6.5 years for IDA. I am from Donegal. I am living in Sligo. I'm here about once or twice a day. John Andy can verify that. And I'm often down home on a Sunday for the dinner. But I would say that the team here have done a phenomenal job, and every client company that we've brought in here, the ambition again, the positivity and the desire to be better, to be more. And the TU is such an exciting opportunity for this region. The Southeast will have experienced this already, so we're still riding our high. But it's a really exciting opportunity for clients that are in the region, but also new clients coming to the region. Because as you'll see here today, there's an opportunity for you, all of you in this room, to shape the future, and particularly in this area. And it is, the ears are open and people want you to contribute. So please take them up on that opportunity. Financial services in Ireland has been built over the last 40 years. All in all, with Enterprise Ireland and ourselves, there's about 450 companies employing nearly 50,000 people. We've got about 250 of those companies employing 40,000 people. So it's a substantial footprint, and we are a global player. 20% of all our annual investment is now from the FS sector. It's one of our fastest growing sectors, and it's demonstrated incredible resilience in the current challenging climate. We're home to 20 of the top 25 global FS companies, 17 of the top global 20 companies, global banks, 11 of the top global insurers, and 14 of the top 15 aircraft lessors. Half of the world's leased aircrafts are owned or managed in Ireland. So what a base to be working from with this initiative. Increasingly, we're becoming a FinTech hub for companies on payment, blockchain, and RegTech. And the sector is fast expanding, motivated by Ireland's reputation around technology. And we've seen companies like Square, Stripe, and Soldo regulate in Ireland as a means to passporting their services into the EU market. Global leaders and local clients like Optum and other national clients like MasterCard and Citibank all have R&D innovation centres that are centres of excellence globally for them, and that's done here in Ireland. Regionally, the perception of peripherality in the Northwest has been disrupted by the pandemic, and thank goodness it's a benefit from a really terrible time. With job mobility and talent mobility, we're seeing many of our talented and educated diaspora from the region return to take up senior and global leads and MEA roles here in Donegal and the Northwest City region. And there's more of them out there to get to return. Regionally, FS is a significant presence across the country in several regional locations, making it a genuinely national industry. And 30% of IDA IFS jobs are located outside of Dublin, and 80% of our top IFS clients have regional offices. And PGIM, which are a branch of Prudential, they're one of the top 10 asset managers. They have a location here in Donegal, as well as TCS, who are a leading digital transformation consultancy that have a huge base around financial services. So we have a lot to shout about in this region. As I mentioned, our new strategy is very focused around regional development and talent transformation and innovation. 50% of all new investments we are targeting to win for regional locations. And in conclusion, I would like to say, over the past 40 years, Ireland's earned a reputation as a global hub for international financial services and technology. This has provided Ireland and the regions with a unique financial services ecosystem, which is helping to attract investors. Talent is absolutely on everybody's lips, and initiatives like this are very welcomed and warmly welcomed by clients and future investors. As I said, the new TU is a significant development for the region. Initiatives like this one show the ambition of the region and also the Southeast region in the potential to transform and grow, and it's led by educators, innovators, experts, and everyone in this room. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Michelle. So I'm just going to welcome to the stage David Roach. So David's actually just new to the role of the Work-Based Learning Manager for the FinTech and InsurTech cluster here in Donegal. So we're going to hear from him for a minute, and just welcome to the stage, and thanks again. So David, over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning all, and thank you very much. Delighted to be here. I know a number of people in the audience, so for those, they'll probably think I'm sounding like a broken record, but my name is David Roach, and I have been 12 years in Donegal up to recently, and over the last 25 years, I've been in the FinTech sector, and it has grown enormously. I do remember when FinTech was born, which was the day after the financial crash in 2008, and whilst I agree with all of Michelle's stats, the one thing that perhaps people may not know is that the FinTech sector globally is valued at about 8 trillion. So it's a massive sector. And Ireland has a massive slice of that particular sector. And when you fast track that right up to today, the regions now are growing accordingly and exponentially. So what I'm doing now in my new role here in ATU, and I've only recently joined in the last couple of weeks, my new role here will be to engage with all of the FinTech and InsurTech companies and to become sort of a work-based learning program developer to help what I would call 4 main pillars. And these 4 pillars that I'm putting into place hopefully will help the region to grow. The first pillar that I'd like to concentrate on is the pillar of the cross-border e-commerce, the opportunity for us here in ATU in Donegal to engage with the North West City region in Derry and Strabane. I think that's sort of pillar number 1, not in any particular order, but for today's discussion. Pillar number 2 will be the area of collaboration, how we're going to collaborate and understand all of the new technologies and the demands of each particular institution. So I think collaboration will be the new buzzword for the next foreseeable future. The third pillar will be the pillar that I'm going to try and concentrate on quite a lot, and that is talent retention in companies and how we're going to upskill and reskill the individuals in companies when they see the fast-moving fusion of technologies coming down the tracks. And I think that's terribly important because this region doesn't want to lose the talent. And here in ATU now, with the new development of this university, we have the opportunity to ensure that the talent stays within the region, and I think that's terribly important. And the fourth and final pillar that I'd like to concentrate on is a pillar that I was a very strong advocate of when I was working with Primerica for 12 years here, was the relationship and the partnership between industry and academia. Now the coin is flipped. I've joined ATU, and it'll be academia in partnership with industry. And one of the areas that I'd like to promote is the opportunity to sort of invite the people and the appropriate people in industry to come and engage with me in relation to the type of programs they need for their talent retention. Whilst we are promoting 3 particular programs at the moment, the whole MSc in FinTech and Innovation, the UX Experience in Design Thinking, and the whole area of governance. So these are small areas that everyone knows about, but there are many more opportunities as well. I can throw out one which is called FinCrime. These are areas that are going to explode in the next couple of years, and I think we need to be ready for all of that. So that's the type of role that I'll be engaged in here with ATU in Donegal. The partnerships will be ATU in Galway, ATU in Sligo, ATU here, obviously, and of course with CIRDAS and indeed with SETU. They're terribly important part of all of this because we're going to work together in collaboration. And I think that's just a given that everybody now knows that. And I suppose one final thing I'd like to say is that while you heard a lot of information today about the past and the history of the IDA and what they have done, there is something coming down the tracks which is going to affect and reshape all of FinTech, and that is the area of ESG, environmental, social and governance. And this is something that I think will have a huge influence on how we develop certain programs and how we integrate certain modules within certain programs over the next number of years. ESG is a huge area. It's been recently passed and approved by the EU Commissioner Mairead McGuinness, the Irish lady representing us in Europe, and it's been passed in May 2021, and the implementation of ESG is by January 2024. So it's important that people in asset finance, in financial services, in InsurTech understand the level of what ESG is going to affect and reshape. So that's me. Looking forward to engage. I want to thank John Andy and Michael Margay for inviting me here today, and looking forward to speaking with you all later on. Thanks, Emil.
Okay, folks, that closes out our first section. I believe we have a challenge with online, so we're just going to restart the online stream for a minute or two. So just in closure, I think very great insight. We've seen a lot of support locally, seeing how people are going to work together. Obviously, leveraging what has been done down with the team in Carlow and how it can be built up here in the Northwest as well. So really fascinating insight in the first section. The next section coming up is specifically around AI and basically the fuel that generates an awful lot of what happens in the fintech world. So AI in the future is going to be a session that we have with Professor Alistair Milne and Professor Peter Cowlack. We're also going to hear from Mick McCann here in ATU on a project around synthetic data and AI. And then we will close out the session with the panel discussion that I'll host with a couple of people that you've heard reference in some of the presentations already. So just to provide a little bit of background where we're at. Are we good on the stream? Speak amongst yourselves there.
On behalf of the City of London, you could say, with all of those insurance companies and all of those finance companies, the banks, etc., in that kind of square mile, and look at, say, well, what's the future of this, and how is AI going to change this? How will the world change as the new technology comes in? And it's been quite interesting because even just listening to people talking in the earlier session, how many references have there been to the fact that we can kind of offshore now? We can sit. We can do work from Donegal that may have once been done from a kind of square mile in the centre of London, you know, for example. And so if you look at it from the point of view of the square mile, you say, well, actually, maybe that's a threat from the point of view of some of the incumbents there, that actually we've got these tech firms and these tech clusters across Europe, in the west of Ireland, for example, and they can do what we used to rely on doing. When I first worked with the insurance industry in the 1990s, literally carrying folders of underwriting risk, commercial risk, from brokerage to brokerage. You know, literally paper files in those days. And how is that being changed by the new technology and AI in particular? To come to the point, I sat there, I decided there's three things I need to say, but I need to say them twice. And the three things are, number one, where there is prediction, there is AI. Where there is prediction, there is AI. Number two, where there is AI, there are network effects. Number three, where there are network effects, there goes the chance, there stands the chance to restructure an industry. 3 points. Where there is prediction, there is AI. If you think about it, let's not worry about the difference between AI and ML, machine learning, for a moment. But if you think about what AI is doing, as we know it today, your predictive text, or maybe your Alexa ecosystem, something like that, or Siri, they're making predictions. Basically, the technology is making a prediction all the time. That's what it's doing, just making a prediction. I think that Soundwave said, get me the pizza restaurant, is a kind of on Alexa or something like that. What the technology is doing is making a prediction. So then the question becomes, how much of the insurance industry is tied up with prediction? So my first point, as I said, is where there is prediction, there is AI. So how much of the insurance industry is tied up with prediction? Prediction over your risk, your behavior, the valuation of goods. You might begin to think, well, whether we're talking about commercial or consumer insurance, a huge amount of this is just prediction. It's predicting how you will behave, how you will drive, how the risks associated with one kind of trip versus another kind of trip. It's just prediction. So, okay, where there's prediction, there's AI. There's a lot of prediction in insurance. There's likely to be a lot of AI in insurance. Okay. Now, second point is where there is AI, so there are network effects. So what are network effects? Network effects is basically to tell you that additional data helps, if I put it like that. Additional data helps. Additional data gives an advantage. So, a bit similar to why have we only got one Amazon, if you like? Why have we only got one Facebook? It's basically because these industries, these platforms have been driven by network effects. It's better to have a lot of data to tell you a lot of things reliably than to try and make inferences from less data. So, for example, the Amazon recommendation system works very well because it has a lot of your transactions and a lot of other people's transactions. It's figured out the patterns. It's basically saying, if you bought this, then you're probably interested in this. And it does that very well because there's a lot of data. So that second point is that where there is AI, so there are network effects. And where there are network effects, we tend to see very few winners. Very few winners, because the ones with the most data win. So now I'm sitting in the City of London, I'm thinking, okay, so we've got to win a data game. If somebody has more data than us, if we have less data, they have more data, then they are probably going to make better predictions than us. And following on from the logic above, this is a prediction industry. Okay, so this is beginning to change the game. So the third point is, where there are network effects, so there is the potential to restructure an industry. And this is what we've seen, really. This is what we've seen, is that industries have become restructured around the presence of network effects. Some of you will know, but I tend to tell this. This is what California understood in the early 21st century when the rest of us were saying, no, those platforms will never work. Amazon will never make a profit, that kind of thing. They understood that actually they can build an industry of a different structure, a different scale, by basically assembling the greatest pools of data that they can. And that's in one sentence, that's the history of Facebook Meta, that's the history of Amazon, etc. So the staple in this part of the story, and this is kind of the third chapter, where there are network effects, then there is the potential to restructure an industry. And the staple in this, if we were to draw it out of the textbooks today, is people might talk to you about the media industry, for example. They might say, well, I'm just looking around, you're all too young. But there was once something called HMV, for example, and one or two nods, yeah, just one or two. But there was a thing called HMV and Virgin stores and this kind of thing, and people bought music there. I mean, it sounds laughable now, doesn't it? People used to set off on the public transport to go and buy music. I mean, it's just laughable. But people, just try and explain that to your children. It's like, you've got a better chance by telling them that great-granddaddy used to ride a horse. They'll get that more quickly. The staple about restructuring industries is basically to say that actually there will be a kind of a disruptor. There will be a winner who, there will be a heroic Steve Jobs, an Apple iTunes, or heroic Android who displaces the incumbents and becomes the new knight, the new force in charge. That's what we've told. That's what we teach kind of about how these network effects play into industries. That actually you have a dominant infrastructure, you have famous brands like Virgin and HMV, but Steve Jobs comes in and makes of them dust, and then everybody's downloading. That's how we've told it. But what Alistair will tell you, and what Tech NGI is showing us, is that that's not the game anymore. We're in a new chapter now, and we're in a new chapter where there's a much more convoluted, contested space between those who are dominant in the industry now, but under threat, and the startups who are playing in, and sometimes winning, sometimes losing. And sometimes the innovations are run by the incumbent industry, the successful innovations, because we're into a kind of a very new space. I hope I'm getting that point across now, but the point is that what we will see in the future is not a simple replay of the conquest of the media industry by startups. We will see something that is much more nuanced between existing industry players doing some of the leading innovation, plus startups coming in. That's the important point. So just to finish off and bring it to a kind of end, just to show you, put you some of the thinking in an orthogonal way, is what I very often do with students when I'm making that fundamental point about prediction, is I talk to them about Aubrey's study from 2019, where they used AI algorithms to predict the price of art. And it's a nice example because people think about that, well, that's a very subjective process, isn't it? That's very subjective. How do you do that? How do you predict the price of a piece of art? But Aubrey's study shows that machines can do it. So just as a way of kind of finishing, the point is about prediction. There are many other points we can make about the industry. Network effects begin to play in. Network effects are basically saying the biggest pool of data will normally win. There are nuances around that. Biggest pool of data will normally win. And then we get to the point where we sort of say, but what we're seeing in the industry at the moment is not a kind of a single Steve Jobs heroic iTunes movement that is changing an industry, but something much more contested. So let's have a look at the role of prediction in art and see if you can answer a simple question. Art is actually not difficult to predict. It's a very structured problem. Which one of these two paintings is the most valuable? Just think about it in your own mind and think about the data that you're using. This is on the left-hand side as you look at it. Number 5, 1948 by Jackson Pollock. Painted in 1948, sold in 2006. It's 2.4 meters by 1.2 meters on fiber board. And then on the right, Garçon à la Pipe by Pablo Picasso, 1905, sold in 2004. It's a meter by 81 centimeters, oil on canvas. To make a prediction over the value of these things, or the relative value, which one is the more expensive, suddenly we're using data, aren't we? What you're missing, what's unfair, is that, but what we can give a computer or an art dealer is the historical values of each artist. Once you've got those historical values, you'd all be on it. You know, I would be getting a prize for the best teacher of art valuation in 5 minutes in history. I'd be walking out with that award just at the end of this. But have you got in your mind, you know, so the Blue in Art Sales Index is very valuable to the machine learning systems. But if you've got in your mind that you think the Picasso is more valuable than the Jackson Pollock, if you've made that decision in your mind using the data available, then you are wrong. The Jackson Pollock is the more valuable of the two paintings. It was sold in 2006 for $144.8 million. There's one or two professors in this institution who don't even earn that. And poor old Picasso came home second with with it only selling for $119.9 million, which our experts thought was a tremendous overvaluation. This being from, Picasso was just 24 years old at this point in time, another piece of data, and 24 years old, he's just like any other artist. He does his major stuff much later. So anyway, you see basically it's a structured problem. The insurance industry is just full of structured problems where we can make decisions over risk and valuation. And therefore we expect to see a huge amount of AI in the insurance industry, but how it will change the industry, Alistair will tell you. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Peter. So we're just going to hand over virtually to Professor Alistair Milne. So you want to...
Hello.
Hi, Alistair. We can hear you fine.
That's great. So it's a great pleasure to be invited to join this. I think this is an important initiative. I've been learning a lot about the combination of research and training, which I think is a crucial link to get. And I'm going to share my screen first. I've got a few slides which are going to be a bit of a rattle through, but I'm hoping there'll be a chance to Q&A about this. So I'll tell you about our project, the Tech NGI project, focused on AI and data technologies in the insurance space. And we've worked with, and not on this slide, but we've worked with a number of major partners in the UK insurance industry, BGL Limited, the Lloyd's Market, Willis Towers Watson, as they prefer to be called, WTW under their rebranding, and a number of others. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not sure I've quite got the same grand vision as Peter is able to offer you. I come from an economics background, and the points he was making about platforms and networks, absolutely, they're important. But as always, when you get to work grips with real world and real world data, the stories sometimes get a bit complicated. I think that's true of the insurance industry. So I'm going to give you some illustrative examples of not all the output. We don't have 2 days. I'm going to talk a little bit about our case study library, and then finish off with the kind of the summary, the core themes which came out of the work. I should say this project, I think, is a starting point for what we believe will be a lot of future work. I'll talk about that at the end. So I think this perhaps links most closely to the work we're hearing about from the Carlo INS and the supporting ecosystem of InsurTechs and other tech startups. So one branch of our work was to use use the databases on like Crunchbase and other startup databases to really take a deep dive into the environment and the ecosystem for startups. And it's a complex picture, which actually, when you use tools of network analysis and network visualization, begins some pretty interesting patterns emerge. As my colleague other colleagues who've led on that, there's a working paper I can refer to, Van Meteren, Zamarat, and their co-authors. And I think we don't think this is just London biased. What this points to are the important overlaps where the ability we've heard the term cluster, the ability to put all the necessary skills in contact with each other makes a big difference. So this is just one example from a much more deeper analysis, which was picking out some of the technical tools which were found as a cluster together, that were linked by addressing common problems, common skills. In this case, artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics, big data. There were other focuses in that same paper on distinguishing InsurTech from other forms of technical innovation. So that was one dimension of our work, setting InsurTech. By the way, I think I might go back to Zamarat and Michelle and say, have we looked closely enough at what's been going on in Ireland? Because I'm not sure it's received all the attention it could have done in their work. A second area I wanted to highlight, and I'll come on to a more overarching one in a moment, was the ethical and regulatory sides of InsurTech, and there's been a great deal done on trustworthy AI and ethical AI, and that's clearly of central importance in the insurance industry and other financial services. But we particularly focused, and this was my own work with one of our RAs, on the RegTech opportunities in insurance. And that turned out, I mean, this illustrates one point I'll come to in a moment, which is the very varied nature of the industry. The bigger issues there are more on the life insurance side, where solvency issues, Solvency II and prudential regulatory risk reporting is a major issue. It also plays a bit of a role as conduct risk and client protection. And the key point we were find from our focus group meetings, a report in this particular working paper is, well, firstly, how technology and regulation is rising up the agenda for senior management in the insurance industry, but a bit behind other areas of financial services. So if you go to banking, capital markets in particular, there's a lot more awareness. But there are substantial efficiency and cost savings gains to be found from using technology, and it's sometimes a startup story, but it's more a story about reorganizing and coordinating and standardizing data internal to the firms. And as we document, regulators globally, the Bank for International Settlements, the FDIC in the US, the European Banking Authority, and increasingly insurance regulators are bringing an agenda of let's all manage our numbers in the same way so that we can do regulation smartly and cheaply. So I could have given you, by the way, I warned this will be a bit of a rattle through. I could have given you 15 or 20 examples of the research that came out of the project. Huge scope, a lot more still to be done. But I think this is probably the best example to give you a more of an overview of the range of issues we're tackling. So certainly digital disruption that Peter's emphasized, and that's another part of the research, but it's one part of a bigger landscape. And this is particular diagram. So this comes from the work of our colleague Chris Holland, and he's been analyzing the opportunities in business application along, in this particular case, along two different dimensions. The horizontal dimension, whether the application, the nature of the problem or the task is more narrow or specific, or whether it's a broader general application. And on the vertical dimension, the vertical axis, it's about the extent, if you like, of intelligence inside the technology. So traditional static algorithms moving upwards to AI-based adaptive algorithms. And the focus, and this is what we're finding through all our case studies, I'll turn to case studies in a moment, is that to this point in time, most of the action in terms of AI and related technologies in the UK insurance, and this isn't quite the worldwide picture, but in UK insurance is more around this middle left area. It's still rather narrow and specific, but there is increasingly the use of adaptive algorithms, particularly in things like natural language processing, image processing, and a related finding from a separate piece of work by Chris and Neil Kavuri, another RA on the project, analysing the startups in the UK, and I think it was globally, I'm forgetting their database, I think it was just the UK, that the majority, around 80% of the insurance startups are orientated towards working with the established incumbent insurers. So there's less of an Amazon type story, more about how to at this point in time. Now that's not, though, to say that there won't be disruption in the longer term. And the case studies probably illustrate that a little bit better, which is my final slide I wanted to look at. So we've developed what we call a case study library. We're still, although the funding of the project is over, we're still finishing some of the write-up and review of all of this. And our decision was not to try and explore 100 cases, but rather to take a few examples and explore them in some depth. And in contrast, perhaps, to some of the overall, if you take an aggregated view, if you look at all the InsurTech activity that's going on, many of them align the AXA XL, which is the commercial insurance branch of AXA. For them, it's still very much a process improvement. It's about claims management, fraud reduction, reducing costs of processing. But there are other examples where really a lot of novelty is coming in. So telematics in auto insurance, both Tesla and our study of the German insurance group HUK Coburg is exploring the opportunities there. There's a related theme about the Internet of Things through Consirus, who are a major supplier of information to the London insurance markets for marine insurance. And what they're establishing, and this speaks to one of Peter's points about platforms, by establishing the Quest Marine platform, I don't think it's a little bit early to judge whether that's going to be, an ultimate winner takes all, or whether it'll be a major competitor alongside maybe a small number of similar platforms. But that's definitely the future when it comes to the providing core information to the London markets and others, is a platform-based approach, and the industry is moving slowly in that direction. But we have other examples. 10Me, I think, is a very good one, which shows some of the pitfalls of running too fast, because insurance products are complicated. They involve not just data, but they also involve trust and understanding. And the 10Me, which was a collaboration with Admiral, the UK retail insurer, unfortunately, when it got the plans for using social media data in order to inform their car insurance products, when it got out into the media with some negative press reporting, the whole project collapsed. And the lesson there, I think, was that they'd thought a bit too much about the technological implementation, and does this work in terms of delivering a better insight into risk, better predictions, and not enough about thinking what are the ethical and consumer acceptability of taking this type of more automated approach to our products and services. And finally, a couple of other case studies which are looking at where there are examples, less in the UK, but certainly globally, where there have been some dramatic changes in business model. Lemonade is well known for renter and other insurance. Ping An, an example, and not the only one, of a major platform developing in the relatively unregulated Chinese market, and taking advantage of their market power to develop a range of important and value-creating innovations. So, as I've warned already, a bit of a rattle through. I'd to finally summarise, and Chris and I are still hammering this out. What are all the lessons learned from all this work? Well, what's important, as well as the insights about disruption, which we came to the project with those, and those are important and happening in certain areas. That's the new business models in the middle. But you can't think about that on its own. You have to think about the technology in business context. You have to engage adequately, and this is where training, of course, comes in, building with the entrepreneurial ecosystems. Regulation and oversight is crucially important. And perhaps most important of all is organizational implementation. And again, training and education is critical. The insurance industry is, on the whole, a rather conservative one. And the ability for, it's a fascinating dynamic, the ability for senior management who are perhaps not entirely comfortable with all the new technologies. The most successful firms, in our view, I think this is coming out of our case studies, are those that are learning to integrate technology understanding with the senior management decision making, and not treating technology as something in the back room, recognizing that insurance is increasingly a technology business, but doing that in a way which is not losing sight of the long-standing insights and understanding of their own customers and of the risks they face. So organizational implementation, and it's going to be a long-running challenge. So our predictions are about not a revolution across insurance, revolution in certain areas, but an evolution which gradually addresses many areas of the industry. One follow-up project, which we'll be happy to talk to anyone about, is we're working with Willis Towers Watson on a subsequent project, which is focused on technology adoption in industrial property insurance. And it's probably one of the most manual and backward, antiquated areas of the insurance world. It's still all done on largely subjective risk assessment by experienced risk professionals. But there's a great scope for digital transformation, but that really it's just at the starting point, and we're helping them explore through a mini centre for doctoral training how to address and understand the challenges there. Should have mentioned at the beginning data access and data. That's come up several times, but again, that's a lesson for senior management. You have to get the data straight. So it's a big rattle through, and I hope we want to make the outputs of our project there as that are there to be available for the years ahead, because this is not going to date rapidly. I think these are findings which are going to be of value for the next 5 to 10 years. And so we're going to make sure they're all written up in a way which can be used, for example, in your educational programs. And we'd very much invite future engagement with Atlantic College, with others, on understanding better the insurance industry and InsurTech within it. Okay, that's my bit. I probably overrun my time a little bit, but let me stop the sharing.
No problem. Thank you very much, Alistair, and again, thank you, Peter.
Yeah. I should have to offer an apology. It's partly because of the technical problems. I'm due to join the panel later, but a later commitment means I won't be able to do that, unfortunately.
That's no problem, and I appreciate you making the time, Alistair, to present. So thank you again, Alistair and Peter. I'm going to invite to the stage Dr. Michael McCann from ATU Donegal here, who's going to speak a little bit about his synthetic data and AI project. So I just load up the deck 1 second. Thank you.
Okay, afternoon everybody. I'm Dr. Michael McCann. I'm a senior lecturer in the Faculty of Engineering Technology, and I'm the senior lecturer for research development here at ATU. I'm going to talk about some of the AI projects that we're involved in and a wee bit about synthetic data. Okay, I know our speakers at the start talked about the unique Northwest City region. It's something that's really important, and the fact that we're now a technological university. We now have 2 university towns sitting basically 20 miles apart, and the opportunities that exist there, we have to be really lean into. We're servicing over 350,000 people. We have a unique geography, and I think it's really important to drive that message home. I'm going to rattle through this pretty quickly because we're running over time. Just some headline numbers here, just to take home. The new ATU, we have over 20,000 students, 5,000 graduates every year. Okay, so it's a large university with our partners down through Sligo and Galway, and that again presents new opportunities for us. Here in Donegal, one of the interesting numbers here is like 90% of our graduates are finding work within 4 months, and are either that or coming back to our postgraduate programs. Within computing and technology, that's probably higher. And people have talked about talent acquisition and sourcing that talent. And that's a really important figure and something that we're very proud of. Strategic partner engagement. There's loads of strategic partners we have here in the room. We have a long history in the Institutes of Technology of working very closely with industry. That's something that we're going to carry on into the technology university. So very important part of it. So getting to the AI piece, we're making some significant investments here locally in Donegal. We just got €370,000 worth of funding. We're building out a data ingestion and HPC a unit out in the CoLab here, just next door. We're going to use that, for our postgraduate research, and we're going to use it to engage with industry and work with our industry partners in order to leverage that expertise and to leverage that infrastructure into a test bed for testing AI models or for training for industry and stuff, which is particularly important to the FinTech sector that we have here. Just some stuff around postgraduate research. There's been significant growth in this area, obviously with our push towards the university status. We have 67 postgraduate research students at level 9 and level 10, probably maybe 20 or 30 of them now at PhD level. We have industry partnership and part-time research projects. We have a new industrial PhD program that's in development. We'll probably talk to our industry partners to help us shape that, to make sure it's fit for purpose. We have the AI Now Research Centre with some of the partners here, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides' time. We have a new research suite that's just opened out in CoLab for 50 students. So there's significant investment being made in this space. We're also looking to launch our postgraduate research training program next year in digital transformation for the data economy. That'll have 15 funded PhDs. We will have bespoke research, training, development, innovation workshops, and again, a lot of the industry partners here today were very supportive in our application for that. Very quickly, we have a range of postgraduate courses. The ones that stick out for this are obviously big data analytics, artificial intelligence, FinTech, and we've just validated a new MSc in blockchain technologies and applications, which is something we're seeing increased demand for training in. So we're very proactive coming out of the technology space. We have a large suite of MSc programs between ourselves and the Faculty of Engineering Technology and the guys in the Faculty of Business, and we work very closely on that. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a wee bit about AI Now. Shout out to Catherine for helping us put together the resources to design the logo and stuff. It's a cross-border research centre along with our partners, Allstate, Seagate, Tata, and Optum. And really, we're tasked with looking at some of the grand challenges that industry are faced with in terms of what AI is presenting, in terms of that digital disruption, that paradigm shift in terms of how businesses are operating. And it is, it's a massive challenge, and it's important to bring together those academic expertise and industry partners to drive the research in that space. We have a postdoctoral researcher already working on that. We did an initial work package which we pulled together, which we're now currently working on, and that's just going to take me onto this field of synthetic data. I think my academic colleagues earlier talked about the importance of data. That the person who has access to the most data is going to be in front. So this notion of how do we get access to data, is there a way to create data synthetically? You can see here, Gartner said by 2030, synthetic data will completely overshadow real data in AI models. One of the problems with getting data is there's a cost to acquiring it. There's problems around privacy, whether you can use it or not. And just getting access to that data to train models in the first place is crucial to whether or not you can develop successful AI models. And just a wee tagline here, synthetic data is a bit like diet soda. To be effective, it has to resemble the real thing in certain ways. Taste, fuzz, and all the rest of it. So what you're looking to do, speaking to the mic, sorry. What you're looking to do there is replicate real data in a synthetic manner. Okay, so creating a trusted society. This is something that's very important. We have seen over COVID, with social media and stuff, there are issues around trust around data, trust around all sorts of things. These are just a few snippets of some press. And it's really important that academia and industry are a vanguard and lead out on this notion of a trusted society to get trust in how we're using data and what we're going to use data for. And again, this is where synthetic data plays back into this area, because if you're able to generate synthetic data, then you're not using real data on real people to be able to generate AI models in the long run. There's currently a massive call out from UKRI and around how to transform AI ethics and regulation. So this is a massively evolving space. So how's it generated? Basically, we take some source data. Stay beside the mic, sorry. We take some source data. We fit a model to that. We apply that model and generate synthetic data. So a model is just applied for statistical machine learning and deep learning techniques. Then to fit that model, what we do is we have this generator that generates generates your synthetic data. You have a discriminator that then compares that back to your real data, and you generate a result or a score. And what you're trying to do is get your synthetic data to be as close to your real data as possible. And once you get a metric, a score that you're happy enough, then that indicates you have high quality synthetic data, which you can then use to train models and to do further predictions in terms of whatever it is you're trying to find about, depending on what sector you're in. So within the financial services innovation within financial services is increasingly driven by access to large volumes of data, which we've talked about. With new innovations underpinned by advances in AI and machine learning, cloud computing, big data, open banking infrastructure, it's widely recognized that artificial intelligence holds significant potential in the financial services industry. However, the extent of its potential will depend upon the wide availability and access to data innovators. So we're back into that same space again, access to data and having those data sets to be able to build your models. Financial data, while valuable, is highly sensitive and is subject to data privacy laws and place conditions in the sharing of that data. So again, this is where the synthetic data comes back in. You're overcoming those challenges. Synthetic data is a privacy preserving technique that could open up more opportunities for data sharing, generating statistical, realistic, but artificial data that is readily available. And again, the FCA there have published a big call for information in and around how we're going to face this challenge around synthetic data just literally this month. Okay, within FinTech then, the application of this technology within business is relatively new. However, it has the potential to make financial services more accessible, more efficient, and to improve consumer outcomes. Current AI and data-driven innovations are being deployed in areas such as financial crime and fraud prevention, customer engagement, credit scoring, sales and trading, insurance pricing and insurance claims management, asset management, and portfolio optimization. Now, I'm talking about those things as if I understand them, but I'm from a tech background, so I'm sure that makes more sense to you guys, but this is taken from the current literature. Okay, listen, just in the interest of time, just to sum up, innovation and dynamism are crucial to the longevity in a business landscape that has been constantly transformed by digital disruption. And that's the same for all industries and none more than FinTech. So for the week that's in it, and it's the 50th anniversary of the release of Ziggy Stardust and Spiders from Mars, I don't think there is any greater innovator and somebody that has reinvented themselves than the late, great David Bowie. So I'll leave him as an example to all of us and just finish with that. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much, Mick, and finish him with Bowie as well, fair play. So we are done with section 2. We're on the final section. We're slightly running behind, but I'm going to close out with a panel, and I'm very conscious, and thanks again for those that are part of the panel to be part of it. So I'm going to welcome them up on stage, and if they can start making their way up, I will start introducing them. So we have, I'm going to MC this again. Yeah, Roman, Mike, okay, perfect. So it's myself hosting with Mary Galler, who's Senior Consultant at TCS, Dr. Catherine Harkin, who's Senior Manager of the AI Centre of Excellence in Allstate Northern Ireland. We have Ben Deans, who's the Chief Innovation Officer from AXA Ireland. We have Greg McCann, who's Executive Director from FinTech Northwest. And we also have Aravind Ravi, who's the CEO and founder at InsurTech. And unfortunately, as you heard earlier, Professor Alistair is unavailable. So I'm going to invite them up on stage, and we're going to kick them off with a couple of questions and go from there. Thank you. So Dave, you're all mic'd. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So pass, perfect. Okay. Okay, just to kick things off, again, thanks very much to my panel. I also got joined by Professor Peter Kowalek as well. No, you're on the list here, so my bad for not reading. Apologies for that. So just to kick us off, and I'll open a question to the panel and whoever, and I have the mic here. So what do you see as some of the interesting trends to watch out for in the FinTech and InsurTech space? And you're closest to me, so you're going to get hit with that.
Just quickly, I think it was mentioned, I would also put a blockchain as well.
Yeah.
So there's another wave behind the wave that's coming through now. So I think that world of blockchain, Web3, all the crypto stuff coming through as well, DeFi and so on. So I think there's kind of like one huge wave coming through and another. Well, you're used to that in Donegal, aren't you? Yeah. You know, it's kind of Ross Nowler, it's kind of one win and another one just coming.
I think from my perspective, sorry, Ben Deems from AXA, I think as we talked about earlier, I think the insurance industry and finance industry is slightly different to media. I totally agree with that, potentially because of regulation. So I think there's probably a big trend in RegTech will come, but then also the sort of InsurTech actually not doing the insurance, not doing the underwriting, but interacting with the consumer. I think there's a big trend there. So those would be the two I'd pick out. Okay.
Hello, I'm Catherine Harkin from Allstate. I think we're, up to now, and it was touched on, and certainly in Alistair's talk as well, in terms of some of the things that we have been doing up to now have been, maybe the things that were a little bit easier to tackle around natural language processing, in terms of like, OCR type activity, etc. So I think, the trend will be that we're kind of moving that now into more complex domains, in terms of looking at more critical decision making, to try and, use explainable AI for those more complex problems that in a heavily regulated industry are, harder to kind of tackle, and also, harder to kind of ensure that we are meeting the regulations, etc. But, as we get to know the tech better and we're building confidence and trust, then I think we'll move that direction.
Don't feel, not everybody, unless, like obviously only if you feel, don't feel obliged, if you have to pass the mic, no problem at all. Just want to open that question up.
Yeah, so I'm Arvind from InsurTech, co-founder and CEO. So I think I'd like to build upon what Ben said and probably what Peter said as well. So yes, the interaction between the customer and insurers are sort of becoming the primary focus. To dwell deeper into that, the concept of shared value is taking precedence. How do I as an insurer and you as a consumer or a customer work together and stop the risk from actually happening rather than covering the risk after it's happened? And AI has its presence more so within this vision than anything else. So for example, within InsurTech, what we are trying to do is we are trying to predict road accidents before they happen. And we would give a real-time prediction. And that would help you from stopping accidents rather than just covering the losses after that's happened. So that is the biggest trend. And there's also how insurance is being delivered to customers that is being disrupted heavily. You see the likes of Lemonade, Metro Mile, and in UK, Zego, Buy Miles, and these kinds of solutions. But there is also a big trend in embedded insurance, which is basically how do I get to the customer without selling an insurance product? How do I integrate insurance within products like cars? Like cars come with insurance. And can I integrate insurance with your banking apps like Revolut? Embedded insurance and the way insurance is generally distributed is also being disrupted. But I think those two, the shared value and the way insurance is distributed, I think are the biggest two trends that we've observed as an organization.
Thank you, Aravind. What about yourself, Greg?
So we work in a slightly different industry. It's not insurance. It's really investment banking. So I actually think the big growth area is the big thing now is going to be ESG, which sort of sets out what we do. I think ESG is going to be huge. It's going to be like financial crime. So we work in a space of financial crime, up risk, non-market risk, market risk, and those are huge businesses. But I think ESG is going to be a huge business. I'd say that it feels familiar to me, like whenever risk started to roll out across financial crime back in, as David said, in 2008 with the crash. And actually prior to that, with 9/11 was another big trigger for financial crime, anti-money laundering, CTF, counter-terrorist finance. So that environment feels very much like ESG is now, that with a lot of legislation about to come. So I think that's going to be a huge growth area. And there we work in, I suppose, we can't work in isolation. So data quality is a huge issue for it. Now I work on the compliance side, our business around the tech side, so I'm more fin than tech. But so data quality is a huge issue in banking. They spend a lot of money on it, a lot of money pumped into improving data quality, because obviously that's a big issue for anything working on AI. But again, even that can't work in isolation, because where that information is stored is multi-jurisdictional. It's across different environments. It's so, you know, some of the things that are happening now. So having a central register for beneficial ownership. So you're trying to discover in our world, and say in the financial crime world, in the world of KYC, for instance, you know, who owns these highly complex structured organizations deliberately built to hide money. You know, and the ownership structure is very complex. They're deliberately complex for financial reasons, but also for nefarious reasons. So the access to that data and where that data is stored and how it's accessed is going to be absolutely critical, you know, in the coming years, to building smarter, clever ways of really, the global financial crime is estimated to be 5% of GDP. It runs to trillions, you know, so it's an ongoing war. I don't ever think we're actually winning it. I think we're actually losing it. The banks are still continually getting fined. I think they run about 40 billion a year in financial, every year annually in fines. So it's just a war of attrition. It's ongoing, but AI will only work when it's joined up government and the access is made globally available. Otherwise, people will always be ways to beat the system.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Mary? I know it's hard to be last there, so.
Well, I suppose, like if you do look at any kind of white papers on, you know, the 2022 trends in FinTech, right, you come across this A, B, C, D, right? So A stands for artificial intelligence and automation, B stands for blockchain, C stands for cloud computing, and obviously D stands for data, and some people call it digital rather than data. So, but I guess, as you know, Michelle mentioned earlier, I support PGIM, and PGIM is one of the top 10 investment management companies in the world. And I just read a white paper there over the weekend from PGIM to see what they felt was the big trends that, you know, that's going to hit I suppose in the 21st century or whatever. So I made a quick note of them, because these are the top trends, and they said quantum computing, which we know is, you know, obviously very complex calculations, artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, 3D printing, which I think is going to be huge. You know, they talk about things like, you know, being able to print replacement body parts and organs and things like that by maybe 2030 or something like that. 5G, obviously, you know, to make the world like very connected and you know, fast downloads and everything. So that's going to obviously enable like Internet of Things, AR and things like that. Clean energy. You just talked about, you know, ESG and things like that, and being very conscious about the environment. Metaverse. We know Facebook has kind of started that, and I guess, like, you know, it is going to come. When I think about, like, you know, my son or whatever, he's digital avatar and they're playing on their PlayStations all the time. They're so used to it. We're maybe not, but I do see that happening a lot in the future, especially with millennials and going forward, that they'll want this kind of immersive, I suppose, experience. Blockchain. Which again we think is going to have a huge impact, especially, you know, it removes the middleman, I suppose, in a lot of transactions, validating transactions and so on. Robotics, and then maybe space as well, because there's a lot of like SpaceX and that, and exploring what would, you know, happen in space. So that's really kind of what I see.
Yeah, very good. So we're sitting in a university. We've spoken about some of the trends. Again, whoever's open to it, talking about what do you think some of the critical skills are going to be? Because obviously we're talking about what is it we need to be getting the next generation ready for. So all those trends, all this data, lots of levels of complexity. So what is it you think is the critical skills from the panel's perspective? Is it trained skills in how to do AI, or how important is it going to be the ability to present to people? I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Anyone who wants to, Ben's got the...
I suppose, just going back to Damien's presentation, we've obviously partnered with CDAS on this exact topic. So we try to upskill a number of people throughout the organisation on various different skills. So I think there's probably two. One is that actual data analytic, that data science skill. So as an insurance company, we do have a lot of data, but it's actually analysing that data and being able to build the models and etc. But I think the key skill actually is asking the right question first, because I can build lots of models, but if they don't show me anything interesting, what's the point? So actually, what's the key question I want to ask from that data? And secondly, interpreting the results. So actually, those to me are as important as the people who actually do the modelling. Right. You know, and if you can get it in one person, great. Sometimes you can't. You might need two. But those are the sort of complementary skills. One or other on its own just doesn't work, in my opinion.
So yeah, I'd just like to build on that. Like, as a company that has a huge amount of data, you know, in terms of like you think the amount of insights that's locked within that, you know, it's trying to understand how we do unlock that. And you know, I totally agree that, you know, we need to know what problem we're looking to solve, and that's, you know, that's a very difficult thing to try and tease out as you're working with, as you're, you know, you have your technology people, your people who are skilled in AI, ML, talking to business partners and trying to understand what is it that they're trying to do. They just know they've lots of data in there. They can't get through it all. So, you know, how are you going to help them actually, you know, understand what it's saying, what's the patterns and insights that's within that. So, you know, having engineers who, you know, who are skilled at that, and maybe, you know, trying to understand how to place your talent, you know, so you'll have certain people who are skilled in AI, ML, but not everybody needs to know how to, you know, write an algorithm or to even develop that. So, you know, it's that sort of diverse team coming together to help sort of tease out that problem. And then I think, you know, once you've started POCing, you know, what problem you think you're solving, you know, you have a model built, but, you know, actually getting people to use that, you know, there's times where we have maybe built a model and think this is great, you know, build it and they will come, and they don't come, you know, they're not actually using it. So, you know, understanding then how you actually adopt that, you know, how you get people to actually use the insights that's coming out of what that model's telling you and realize some value, because it all comes back to actually, you know, saving money and, you know, proving that what you're doing is actually making, you know, is benefiting the company, and then building off that. So trying not to solve everything at once, but, you know, focus on something, do one turn of the wheel and understand what it's telling you, and work from there.
Yeah. Aravind, from a startup perspective, obviously, I'd love to get your view. We've got, you know, the large corporate view, the academic view. How do you feel about it from a startup perspective?
Yeah, so we're obviously the problem solvers, isn't it? we got to do it. We got to solve the problem, or we're out of business. So that obviously gets us closer to this problem of what kind of skills do we recruit, what kind of skills do we influence within these colleges when we start talking to them. So I think two things stick out for us as a big issue that needs immediate solving. Right. First off is the bias problem. I think if you're someone into AI, you would understand that if you don't have diversity within your data, you're not getting to a right prediction. You're not getting to the right prediction accuracy. And in business, it's similar. If you're not having diversity within your business team, you're not addressing the right issues of a vast majority of the customers. So I think diversity is key. So diversity in terms of where you come from, what skills you hold, and that has to transition or trickle down to the business level. Trickle down to the product development level, meaning when you're building an AI model, can you bring in people with business knowledge? Can you involve your customers within that chats? How actively can you involve them? Obviously, they don't know to write a code. and how can you give the basic knowledge to sort of build that particular product. And we did that in the early days. We had a iterative process of building our product. So we would go and talk to people like Ben. We would go and talk to people who are equivalent to Ben in other organizations and get their perspective. We're building this. The output is going to be like this. But do you think it's going to add value? Right? So that's the way we ensure that the bias problem is solved. And the second thing about putting AI to actual use is productionizing your models. From a technical perspective, you built a model. It is highly predictive. It's very accurate, amazing. But can you use that in a real world environment? Can you put it into a cloud environment? Can you make predictions that is available for businesses? Not often. There are lots of stats. I'm not completely updated on that, but 80% of the models, or somewhere around that number, that are being built are not being used, are not being put into business use cases, which is startling, because the advancement in AI is there, but is there enough skill? Is there enough work being done on making sure that it's being implemented? That's a big question, and partly that is driven by adoption of AI as well. Okay. But I think those two are two important skills that not just an individual has to have, an organization has to develop in itself.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to finish with Mary, Greg, and Peter. Closing out with the FinTech and InsurTech cluster, being in the region, what we're trying to build here, and obviously looking at what's been built in other parts of the country. What do you think is the opportunity from both the company viewpoint and maybe from an academic perspective of the value of clusters like this? So I'd love to get your thoughts. Maybe Mary, if you wouldn't mind giving us a sense of that.
In terms of building
what do you see the value to likes of TCS for the FinTech and InsurTech region and this cluster to be here?
Well, I definitely think that I think there's huge opportunity to really develop this region as a FinTech region, and I'm going to go back to David Roach will know this. I think in 2015 we started getting really interested in FinTech, and we started saying that we need to upskill. Yep. Either our employees in Primerica at the time, or you work locally with, say, the ATU, it was formerly LYT at the time, to build those skill sets so that we would be, able to. These are going to disrupt the financial industry, so we need people to be able to go in there and support those changes. And over the years, we did things like where we worked with ATU at the time. We built that we built that FinTech course. We also, and Joe, you'll remember this because you created the Wave Innovation Lab. Yep. And in the Wave Innovation Lab, we actually created a blockchain POC. Remember, yep. We were using Ethereum and yep. smart contracts because we wanted to prove in the real estate that you could have a peer-to-peer transaction without the middleman. Yep. And we did that, and I think there was, we attended conferences, there was a real appetite within this region to create awareness, to get involved, to attend conferences and so on. And so much so that we had a hackathon, I think it was in 2017, and that was a big collaboration as well with this facility here. It was a great weekend. Sorry, the mic. Sorry. It was a great weekend, and I know, David, then you were involved in creating the innovation labs, and this region in the Northwest became the ICT FinTech region, and I think that was like a huge plus for the region alone. But that was probably, in Primerica, but I'm working now for TCS, and I'm seeing huge possibilities with TCS because they have something like 30 labs, massive innovation labs across the world. They are about to create a massive lab in London. It's supposed to be completed this year. And again, this lab is really to help clients that want to come with, problems that they need to solve. And there's going to be experts there. There's going to be SMEs. There's going to be, I suppose, agile delivery teams with, a mixture of whether it's designers, developers, SMEs, and so on, to help them to kind of maybe get to an MVP or whatever that they need to get to. And I think that having that and the fact that we've got an innovation lab now in Letterkenny, that we've started off in the Letterkenny GDC, I think there's massive opportunity for students coming out of here that could potentially support that big London. It's called the Paceport. It's in central London. It's 14,000 feet, and it's using all the disruptive technologies that we just spoke about, like blockchain, data science, ESG, you know, electric vehicles, all of that good stuff. So, you know, I think that having that ability, that maybe there is a company right on our doorstep here that ATU could work really, really closely with, and get into those type of disruptive technologies, I think would be fascinating.
Thank you, Mary. Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the opportunity is huge. So I worked in banking in Belfast for 20 odd years, and you know, 15, 20 years ago, Belfast, nobody would, very little investment, but Belfast is now like a FinTech hub. So I've seen it do that journey. It's now probably overheating, so it's like, it's really, so one of the reasons we moved to Northwest is the university's there. So we wouldn't have moved to Northwest only if the university was there, so that's why we're there. At Donegal, with Atlantic being coming to university now, is another game changer for this region. I mean, it's been mentioned a few times. It's popular. I think we have to think of it as an area of 350,000 people. I know the Derry City Council City Deal talks an area goes from Coleraine to Sligo. So we have to think of it as a region. And I think we're, you know, you have to get the critical mass in these things for cluster. Like, and I think, you know, the likes of ourselves coming to the Northwest, for instance, and being successful and having that graduate flow that is in the universities is absolutely critical, and showing to other companies, you know, that, and I know the other companies have looked at what we've done, they're now here looking to say, well, those guys have done that, you know. So I think you need just more of that, because there is a critical mass piece, and cluster, you need a wide ecosystem of different types of companies. And I think there's you can see a lot of startup activity now in this area in the Northwest that probably wasn't there before. So I think the potential is absolutely huge for the region. You know, look, the region itself can market itself. It's, you know, recognizable around the world. People want to come and live here and be here, you know. But you need these industries to be here to attract them. And I think we're on the verge of something. As I say, it's great to see, you know, LYT become an ATU. I think that's, people sat up and noticed in our world that suddenly that's a university, didn't realize that, you know. So I think that is, that badge and that label and that branding is vital, because a lot of it is around is perception as well, and you have to get over that initial hurdle. You're not in Dublin, you're out in the you know. The Republic is a good example. They've done it in Galway and places like that, you know, so it can be done. And I think this region is just primed to do that, you know.
Perfect. Yeah. Peter, I'll finish with you because we're running slightly over, so I'm conscious of time. Just if you wouldn't mind closing us out.
Thank you so much. I'll keep it very short, because I think what you have here is this institution is a remarkable placeholder, is a remarkable connector and social capital builder. It's remarkable. You have world-class global firms. You have, it feels like government that is highly facilitative. We have world-class startups of huge potential. Whilst we're sat here, there are kids in labs getting more and more skilled, getting more and more developed, and they're coming out as graduates and so on and so forth. So all of that piece is here. Plus you have one other piece, which very few regions in the world have, which is well-being. And well-being is another huge global trend, that people want to live well, and they've seen their parents not live well or not live well enough, and they want to live well, and they want to live in a kind of environment that is conducive to a kind of lifestyle ask. And by the way, they've got a lot of science coming on behind that, so it's not just an aspiration, it's becoming a must-have, you know, because the science is there and testifying to it. So I think we might see a big shift, and I think the idea of a cluster that sits in some ways in a high lifestyle area, but with access to other facilities, might be the kind of number one idea that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you can give a round of applause there, please, to our panel. Thanks again to Mary and to Greg and to Aravind, Catherine, Ben and Peter. Thanks again for the opportunity today. We ran slightly over, so apologies for that. Very much appreciate everyone's patience in regard to the same. I think this is a phenomenal opportunity with the cluster. I think for somebody who's from this region, who I'm very proud to live in Donegal, have kids here, let's not underestimate the value of ATU to a region like this. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to university in Sligo, and here and now that's not the same in Sligo and Galway and other parts. It's a huge opportunity. I applaud what the team are doing here with the FinTech and InsurTech Master class. Is the first of the events. There will be multiple more. Hopefully you're seeing it's all about the connection between whether it's the government representation we had, the academic representation we had, and the corporates all coming together. That's the value of the cluster. That's the value that we can drive towards. So again, very much appreciate everyone's time. Thank you again for the opportunity. And what I'll do is I'll ask Michael just to take the stage just to close us out. And again, thank you very much, everyone. Cheers.
Try and get a couple of things together. I think the first thing is I really remarked on the wealth of knowledge that we had at this event. You know, I'm going to be thinking a lot about all the different things that were said, and that David Bowie still has great currency out there, so that's a good note on that front. But just to say really to Joe Dunleavy and to Nicola and Donald and Aisling in the faculty office and that there, just couldn't thank you enough for how you put this together, and the role that you played, Joe, is just absolutely superb. So just acknowledgement to everybody on that front there. I think the second thing that comes to my mind, and to give an acknowledgement to one person who isn't here and a couple other people who aren't here as well, it's just left, is to John Andy Boner, to Gary Martin, to Stephen Gillespie, John Kelpie and Tamari that's here from our two local councils, local government councils, the role that they've played from a leadership perspective, and John Andy working together over a long period of time when things were neither popular nor profitable, have really set rich and fertile foundations for the things that we see happening here today. And I think you really have to admire people that need to have a vision line that sometimes is 10 or 20 years into the future, and sometimes the fruits of that vision they mightn't actually see in the timeline of their job. Right, so I really have to just give that shout out and that acknowledgement to some of the people here who put in the long hard yards to make things happen and to create a rich and fertile ground for industry and higher education with local government to work together. And I really think it's something in the Northwest, and we have had challenges, but we've got so many positives, and I think the future couldn't be brighter for the Northwest here. I think the third thing I want to say is probably to reinforce the introduction of David Roach in his new role as you're straddling from industry to academia in terms of this initiative, and to wish him all the best in that, and I'm sure he'll be talking to you an awful lot more. And I think the other aspect is to just signpost in terms of our branding of the initiative. We're going on to the branding, something we started some time ago, FinTech Learning Lab. So you'll be seeing that brand coming out a little bit more. And I think it's also just to acknowledge our partnership with SETU and Damien here. Thanks very much for them. We're seeing how you've created and moved forward on things, and it's a really interesting place and a really strong partnership to have between a cluster in the southeast, a cluster in the northwest, and also to see what's happening in the City of London, one of those global centres that are out there. I suppose to close then, I was reflecting on things, David, or Peter, I hope I get this right. You were saying that it was where you get prediction, you get AI, where you get AI, you get network effects, where you get network effects, you get restructuring and stuff like that there. So I'm going to give it a take now. So I'm going to say instead of AI, you've HI, which is human intelligence. Let's not forget that one there for a moment, right? And that's where we get people and creativity. Really, that's what makes us human beings. And that's really fantastic stuff that's there. It's that special magic that makes miles of a difference and transforms the world that we live in today. I think the second one then, which is when you get human intelligence and people, you're obviously going to get network effects because we're social human beings. Let's not forget that aspect as well. I think some of the secret ingredients in there in terms of the network effects is obviously social capital because we're human beings. I think it's also trust capital is really, really important because trust capital brings things together and it provides you with a secret sauce or a multiplier to make things happen, and that helps build shared understandings. And I think the last bit you referred to then was, you know, if we look at the network effects then and how that can lead to changes in structures, I think in the world we look at and in the context of what we have today, it's also about ecosystems and how those ecosystems live and thrive off each other and work. And I suppose what we're trying to do here in the Northwest is really, and let's not set the ceiling of our ambition too low, is to develop and to have a world-class ecosystem. You know, and we mentioned there about quality of life. In the Northwest here, we have a world-class quality of life. That's as simple as that there. We've been marked out as one of the coolest places on the planet. So once we got that, I'll never ever forget that till the day I die. I'll have it up there in flags. And I think now when we look at the industry base that we have here and we listen to the discussions that we have here, you know, we've got some really, really bright minds, really superb companies here. And what we want to do from the higher education perspective is work in partnership, again, to develop a world-class centre here and an ecosystem here in the Northwest. So on that note, I think lunch is next. I really can't thank you enough for coming here today in person. You know, somebody much wiser than me once said to me, Michael, really important thing you need to figure out in the beginning, half the gig is turning up. And to just on that note there, to say thank you very much, and the lunch is on us now. Thank you.
Thank you.